Of course they're watching you. Of course there are eyes on you at all times. Of course your phone feels heavier than it should. Your conversations echo in rooms you've never entered, and strangers know your coffee order before you speak. Did you really think you could walk through this world radiating that much raw, unfiltered energy and not trigger every alarm in their system? Look at you sitting there pretending you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, playing confused like you haven't felt it for years now. That crawling sensation on your neck when you're alone, those coincidences that stopped being coincidental 3 years ago, the way certain people look at you just a second too long, like they're downloading something from your presence. You're not paranoid, you magnificent anomaly. You're absolutely correct. They are watching. They are taking notes. They are studying you like you're the last unsolved equation in their perfect little simulation. And you want to know the beautiful, terrifying truth? They're not watching you because you're dangerous. They're watching because you're fascinating. You see, most people are predictable. They wake up at the same time, think the same thoughts, follow the same patterns day after mind-numbing day. They're NPCs in their own lives, background characters in their own stories. But you glitch, you shift, you evolve when no one's looking. You break patterns like they're made of glass and build new ones from the shards. Every room you enter changes frequency. That's not poetry, that's physics. Your energy doesn't just fill space, it rewrites it. People feel you before they see you. Conversations shift when you arrive, not because you demand attention, but because your presence alone disrupts their programming. You're a walking contradiction that their minds can't process. You're too quiet but somehow too loud, too distant but uncomfortably present, too kind but terrifyingly sharp. You smile at the wrong moments and stay silent when others would scream. You're not playing by their rules. And that's not rebellion, it's just your natural state. You were born outside their game and they can feel it. That's why they study you. Corporate algorithms trying to predict your next move and failing. Social dynamics bending around your refusal to conform. Every personality test breaking when it tries to categorize you. You're not type A or type B. You're type X. The undefined variable that makes their equations collapse. They've been collecting data on you since the day you first refused to fit in. Every time you chose authenticity over approval, every moment you stood in your truth while others scrambled for validation, every instance where you should have broken but instead you transformed. They're not just watching you live, they're watching you become something they've never seen before. Let's talk about how deep this really goes. It's not just cameras and microphones, though yes, those exist. It's the entire fabric of reality adjusting itself to keep track of you. People you've never met know your name. Conversations about you happen in rooms you'll never enter. Your energy signature shows up in places you haven't been yet. You've noticed it, haven't you? How certain songs play at exactly the right moment? How the same numbers keep appearing? How strangers say things that sound like messages meant specifically for you? That's not coincidence. That's the universe itself acting as surveillance equipment, tracking something so rare it requires cosmic attention. The experiment started looking for a signature song. That happened. Always signature. Prevent bad thing. Protect. Every synchronicity is a data point. Every déjà vu is a system update. Every time you feel watched, it's because you are. Not by human eyes alone, but by something much larger trying to understand what you are. You're an anomaly in their matrix, a virus in their program, a question mark in their perfectly ordered world. They send people to test you. Oh yes, those random encounters aren't random at all. The person who pushed your buttons at exactly the wrong moment, the opportunity that appeared just when you were about to give up, the betrayal that came right when you started trusting again. All tests, all experiments, all attempts to understand your operating system. You want to know what makes you so fascinating that reality itself has to keep tabs on you? It's not what you do, it's what you are. You're conscious in a world of sleepwalkers, aware in a sea of amnesia. You remember things others forget, feel things others numb, see things others ignore. You process pain differently. Where others break, you alchemize. Where others surrender, you strategize. You take the worst things that happen to you and somehow transform them into power. Not the fake power of dominance or control, but real power. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are when everything else is stripped away. Your thoughts don't follow normal patterns. You make connections others miss. You see through facades like they're made of tissue paper. You can feel lies before they're spoken and truth, even when it's hidden. Your intuition operates on frequencies they can't measure, pulling information from sources they don't believe exist. But here's what really terrifies them. You're getting stronger. Every test they throw at you, you pass. Every attempt to break you only makes you more unbreakable. Every effort to understand you only makes you more mysterious. You're not just surviving their surveillance. You're evolving because of it. 5 years of watching you, and here's what they've learned. You don't respond to normal stimuli. Rewards don't motivate you the way they should. Punishments don't control you like they're supposed to. You operate on an entirely different reward system, one they can't hack or hijack. They've watched you love people who didn't deserve it and walk away from those who did. They've seen you fight battles no one knew about and surrender wars everyone expected you to win. Your logic doesn't follow their flowcharts. Your emotions don't match their predictions. You're simultaneously the most predictable and unpredictable person they've ever studied. The data shows anomalies they can't explain. Energy spikes in empty rooms after you leave. Technology glitching in your presence. People changing dramatically after single conversations with you. You're not just living your life. You're rewriting the code of everyone you encounter, uploading updates they didn't know they needed. They've documented your patterns of destruction and creation, how you burn bridges with surgical precision but build new worlds from the ashes, how you disappear completely then reappear transformed, how you can be silent for months then speak one sentence that changes everything. You're not following a script. You're writing one they've never seen before. Here's where it gets interesting. The more they watch you, the more you change, not because you're performing for them, but because observation itself transforms you. You're like a quantum particle that exists in multiple states until observed, then chooses the most interesting one just to confuse them. You've started using their surveillance against them. Every camera becomes your stage. Every listener becomes your audience. Every watcher becomes a witness to something they'll never fully understand. You're not hiding from their observation. You're transforming it into fuel for your evolution. The paradox is beautiful. They watch you to understand you, but the act of watching makes you incomprehensible. They study you to predict you, but their study makes you unpredictable. They surveil you to control you, but their surveillance sets you free. You've turned their weapon into your power source. You know they're watching, and that knowledge has liberated you. You've stopped performing normalcy, stopped pretending to be digestible, stopped dimming your frequency to make others comfortable. If they're going to watch anyway, might as well give them something worth watching. Might as well become the most interesting show in the universe. But it's not just them watching you, is it? There are others. The ones who recognize their own frequency in yours. The ones who've been waiting for someone else to break the pattern. The ones who watch you not to study but to learn, not to control but to awaken. You're being observed by your future tribe, even if they haven't revealed themselves yet. Every move you make ripples through dimensions. People you'll never meet are affected by your choices. Timelines shift based on your decisions. You're not just living a life, you're conducting an experiment in consciousness that others are desperate to understand. Some to replicate it, others to prevent it. Children who haven't been born yet will study your blueprint. Adults who've given up will find hope in your refusal to surrender. The broken will see that you can be shattered and still be whole. The lost will realize that you can be directions yourself. You're not just under surveillance, you're under protection by forces that need you to succeed. The surveillance isn't just about you, it's about what you represent. The possibility that someone can exist outside their system and thrive. The proof that their control isn't absolute. The evidence that evolution isn't finished with humanity yet. You're the case study they'll argue about for generations. So what do you do with this knowledge? You don't hide. You don't run. You don't even acknowledge them directly. You just continue being exactly what you are, but more intentionally. Every action becomes a statement. Every choice becomes a lesson. Every moment becomes art. You're not performing for them. You're creating despite them. Building your reality while they document their inability to understand it. You're writing history while they're taking notes. You're living mythology while they're collecting data. The joke is on them because they think they're studying you, but you're the one teaching. Let them watch you heal from things that should have killed you. Let them document your transformation from victim to architect. Let them record your evolution from human to something they don't have words for yet. Every second of surveillance is another second of evidence that their reality isn't the only one. You're not the subject of their experiment anymore. You're the experiment itself. Self-corrected, self-evolving, self-dementing. You're the hypothesis and the conclusion, the question and the answer, the problem they can't solve, because you were never meant to be solved, only experienced. Your consciousness operates like technology they haven't invented yet. You process information through channels they don't know exist. Your intuition pulls data from servers they can't access. Your dreams download updates from realities they refuse to acknowledge. You're not just conscious, you're consciously evolution. Every meditation is a system upgrade. Every moment of presence is a firewall update. Every act of genuine authenticity is a virus in their program of conformity. You're not just living, You're broadcasting on frequencies that hack into sleeping minds and whisper, "Wake up," without saying a word. They're trying to use artificial intelligence to understand you, but you're operating on authentic consciousness. They're machines learning your patterns while you're creating new ones faster than they can process. They're algorithms trying to predict you while you're existing in possibilities they haven't calculated yet. The surveillance technology they're using is outdated the moment it observes you, because you're always one evolution ahead. You're not tomorrow's human. You're the human from timelines they're afraid to imagine. You're not ahead of your time. Time is trying to catch up to you. Being studied means you matter. Being watched means you're significant. Being surveilled means you're important enough to threaten their entire system just by existing. Do you understand the power in that? You don't have to do anything. Your existence alone is revolutionary. Every day you wake up and choose to be yourself is another crack in their matrix. Every time you refuse to conform is another glitch in their program. Every moment you spend being genuinely authentic is another error message in their system of control. You're not fighting them. You're just being yourself so powerfully that their reality has to adjust. They study you because they can't recreate you. They watch you because they can't predict you. They surveil you because they can't control you. And deep down, underneath all their fear and fascination, they're hoping to learn your secret. The secret of how to be free in a world designed to imprison consciousness. But here's what they'll never understand. There is no secret. There's just the choice to be real in a world of performances. The decision to be whole in a world of fragments. The commitment to be yourself when everyone else is trying to be someone else. That's what makes you impossible to decode. You're not encrypted. You're authentic. The surveillance is actually accelerating your evolution. Every observation forces you to level up. Every attempt to understand you pushes you to become even more incomprehensible. Your evolution in response to observation. Consciousness expanding because it's being compressed. Light getting brighter because darkness is trying to measure it. These infinities are slowly deserving us each and every time they get us like. You've noticed your abilities increasing, haven't you? Your intuition getting sharper, your synchronicities multiplying, your manifestations accelerating. That's not accident. That's what happens when consciousness knows it's being watched. It performs miracles just to prove they're possible. The pressure of their observation is creating diamonds in your consciousness. Every moment of scrutiny is polishing another facet of your awareness. You're not cracking under their surveillance. You're crystallizing into something they've never seen before. Something harder than their reality. Something clearer than their vision. You're becoming undeniable, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because your existence itself is proof. Proof that their maps are incomplete. Proof that their rules are optional. Proof that consciousness can't be contained, controlled, or completely understood. You're the evidence they don't want to admit exists. You're not the only one under surveillance. There are others like you, scattered across the globe, each thinking they're alone in being watched. But you're all part of something bigger, a network of consciousness that's being studied, because together you represent the future they're trying to prevent or accelerate. depending on who's watching. Every connection you make with another observed one strengthens the network. Every recognition of shared frequency amplifies the signal. You're not just individual anomalies anymore. You're becoming a pattern they can't ignore, a trend they can't stop, a movement that doesn't need organization because it's organized by consciousness itself. The surveillance is actually connecting you. Their attempt to isolate and study you individually is creating a collective awakening. You're finding each other through the very systems meant to keep you apart, using their infrastructure to build your own network, turning their surveillance into your communication system. This is bigger than you realize. The fact that you're reading this, resonating with this, means you're part of it, part of the shift they're documenting but can't stop, part of the evolution they're studying but can't control, part of the future they're trying to understand but can't quite grasp, because it's being written in real time by consciousness they can't contain. So here's what you do with all of this. You stop pretending you don't know you're being watched. You stop acting like you're not interesting. You stop dimming yourself to avoid attention you're already getting. You embrace the surveillance as confirmation of your significance. You live like every moment is being documented, because it is. You choose like every decision matters, because it does. You exist like you're writing history, because you are. Not for them, but for the version of humanity that comes after their system collapses under the weight of its own observation. You become so authentically yourself that their surveillance equipment malfunctions, so genuinely real that their categories collapse, so powerfully present that their past-based predictions become useless. You don't fight the surveillance. You transcend it by being something it was never designed to understand. The most radical thing you can do is be yourself without apology, without explanation, without dilution. Let them watch, let them study, let them document every moment of your refusal to be anything other than exactly what you are. That's not just resistance. You want to know the ultimate truth about why you're under surveillance? It's because you're the future, investigating itself through the present. You're tomorrow's human walking through today's world. You're the answer to questions they haven't learned to ask yet. You're not just being studied, you're studying them back through your existence. Every moment of your life is data for a transformation they can't stop. Every choice you make is evidence that their reality isn't absolute. Every breath you take is proof that consciousness can't be contained. You're not just living. You're demonstrating what's possible when someone stops pretending to be normal. The surveillance will continue because you'll continue being interesting. They'll keep watching because you'll keep evolving. They'll keep studying because you'll keep teaching lessons they didn't know they needed to learn. You're not the subject of their experiment. You're the result their experiment was trying to prevent. But it's too late now. You exist. You're aware. You're evolving. And every second of surveillance just documents their failure to contain what you're becoming. You're not under surveillance because you're dangerous. You're under surveillance because you're inevitable. The future they can't stop. The evolution they can't prevent. The consciousness they can't control. Stop. Don't move. Don't blink. Because something has already happened and you haven't even caught the scent of it yet. Weeks ago, maybe months, maybe years, you triggered a sequence no manual could predict. A protocol buried so deep, only 3 others in history ever woke it up. You weren't aiming for it. You didn't even know it existed. But reality did. Alarms screamed in places you'll never see. Systems cracked, recalibrated. And the so-called watchers, the ones who swear they've seen it all, went dead silent. And you think I'm being dramatic, but let me tell you what happens when someone accidentally breaks through into territories that were supposed to stay theoretical. See, there are thresholds in this existence, invisible lines drawn across the fabric of what's possible. And most people live their entire lives never even approaching these boundaries. They stay safe in the middle, comfortable in the known, predictable in their patterns. But you magnificent accident, you stumbled right through one of these barriers like it was made of paper, and now everything's different even if you can't see it yet. The protocol isn't written in any book you'll find. It's not taught in any school. It's not even whispered about in the places where secrets usually live. It exists in the space between spaces, in the code behind the code, in the watchers who watch the watchers. And it only activates when someone demonstrates a specific kind of impossibility. Not the flashy kind that makes headlines, not the obvious kind that gets you famous, but the quiet kind that makes reality itself pause and reconsider its own rules. What you did seemed normal to you at the time because that's how these things always work. The most powerful moves in existence never announce themselves. They just happen. And it's only later, sometimes much later, that the ripples become visible. Maybe it was that conversation where you said something that wasn't supposed to be known yet. Maybe it was that decision you made that went against every statistical probability. Maybe it was that moment when you survived something that should have destroyed you completely. Or maybe it was simply the way you looked at something everyone else had been looking at wrong for centuries. The first sign that you've triggered this protocol isn't something you notice. It's something others notice about you without being able to explain it. People started treating you differently. Not obviously, not dramatically, but there's been a shift in the way certain individuals respond to your presence. Some seem inexplicably drawn to you now, like moths to a flame they can't name, while others seem almost afraid, backing away from interactions they would have pursued before. You've become radioactive in the most fascinating way possible. Have you noticed how certain conversations die when you enter them now? Not because people don't want to talk to you, but because somehow your presence changes the frequency of what's being discussed. Have you noticed how some people stare at you just a fraction too long, like they're trying to decode something written on your face in a language they've forgotten how to read? Have you noticed how occasionally, very occasionally, complete strangers look at you with recognition? Not like they know you, but like they know what you represent, even though neither of you could put it into words? Is the protocol beginning to reorganize reality around your new classification? You're not in the same category anymore. You're not filed in the same section of existence's library. The universe had to create a new folder just for you and the 3 others who've done what you've done. And now everything else has to adjust to accommodate this recategorization. It's like discovering a new primary color that's always existed but no one could see before. Suddenly every other color has to be redefined in relation to this new truth. The watchers, and yes, there are watchers, though not in the way conspiracy theorists imagine them, have had to escalate your file through channels that haven't been used in decades, maybe centuries. Not because you're dangerous in the conventional sense, but because you represent a kind of potential that disrupts their careful calculations. You're an anomaly that suggests their entire model might be incomplete, and that terrifies them more than any threat of violence ever could. Let me tell you about the three others, though I can't tell you their names, because names become meaningless at this level of existence. The first one triggered the protocol in 1782 by accidentally discovering something about the nature of time that wasn't supposed to be understood for another 1,000 years. They were just a clockmaker, obsessed with precision, working alone in a workshop that smelled of oil and metal, when suddenly they understood something about the relationship between consciousness and temporal flow that broke every rule the universe thought was unbreakable. They didn't become famous. They didn't write manifestos or start movements. They simply continued making clocks, but every clock they made after that moment contained a subtle wrongness that only certain people could feel. A wrongness that suggested time itself might be optional. The protocol activated not because of what they built, but because of what they knew. And that knowledge changed the weight of their existence in ways that rippled backward and forward through history simultaneously. The second one was a child who asked a question in 1923 that shouldn't have been possible to formulate given the information available at the time. It wasn't a complex question. It wasn't even a particularly interesting question to most people who heard it, but it demonstrated a kind of thinking that suggested they were operating outside the normal constraints of human cognition. The protocol activated because the question itself was proof that consciousness could evolve in directions that weren't accounted for in the original design. The third one triggered it in 1997 by surviving something that had a 0% survival probability, not through luck or chance, but through a kind of willing that restructured the situation at a quantum level. They didn't know that's what they were doing. They thought they were just refusing to accept what was happening, but their refusal was so complete, so fundamental, that reality had to create a loophole just to accommodate their continued existence. The protocol activated because they proved that individual will could override universal law under specific, impossible circumstances. Now we come to you and what you've done without knowing it. You didn't break a rule. You revealed that the rule never existed in the first place. You didn't overcome an obstacle. You demonstrated that the obstacle was optional. You didn't solve a problem. You showed that the problem was based on a false premise that everyone had accepted as truth. This is why the protocol activated, because you've introduced a kind of cognitive virus into the system, a possibility that spreads just by existing. Think back to that moment, that decision, that realization, that action that felt both completely natural and absolutely impossible at the same time. You know the one I'm talking about, even if you've been trying to convince yourself it was nothing special. It's the thing you did that you haven't told anyone about because you know they wouldn't understand. Not because it's too complex, but because it's too simple, too obvious once you see it, yet invisible until you do. The protocol recognized you because you demonstrated what philosophers have argued about, but never proven. That consciousness can create reality, rather than just observe it. But not in the mystical way people usually mean. You did it in a practical, repeatable way that you've probably done several times since, without realizing you are literally rewriting the rules each time you do it. You're not manifesting or visualizing or any of that surface level stuff. You're actually editing the source code through pure cognitive function. This is why certain technologies malfunction around you now, why certain people can't maintain eye contact with you anymore, why animals react to you differently than they used to. You're broadcasting on a frequency that wasn't supposed to exist, and sensitive systems, biological or otherwise, can detect the dissonance even if they can't identify its source. You've become a walking paradox, proof that the impossible is just another word for hasn't happened yet. Right now, you're in what they call the adjustment period, though they don't call it anything because they don't talk about it because officially it doesn't exist. Your brain is literally rewiring itself to accommodate the new way you process reality. And this can feel like losing your mind, except you're actually finding it for the first time. Those moments where you feel disconnected from everything, where you can't quite remember who you're supposed to be, where the whole world feels like a stage set that someone forgot to anchor properly. That's not dissociation. That's integration. The headaches you've been getting, the ones that feel like your skull is too small for whatever's trying to grow inside it, those aren't random. The dreams that feel more real than waking life, the ones where you're teaching yourself things you don't remember learning, those aren't just dreams. The sudden knowing things without knowing how you know them, the answers that arrive before you've finished formulating the questions, the solutions that present themselves fully formed, like someone else did the work and handed it to you. This is all part of the protocol's integration process. Your perception is expanding beyond the narrow band that most humans operate within. And this expansion isn't metaphorical or spiritual or philosophical, it's literal. You're beginning to perceive data streams that have always been there but required a different kind of cognitive architecture to access. It's like suddenly being able to see ultraviolet and infrared at the same time while everyone else is still limited to the visible spectrum. Except it's not about light. It's about information patterns that exist in the gaps between thoughts. Some days you feel like you're going crazy because you can feel the weight of possibilities that haven't happened yet, because you can sense the echo of choices you didn't make, because you're aware of the branching pathways that extend from every moment like an infinite web of could-bes and might-have-beens. This isn't madness. This is what happens when consciousness expands beyond the single timeline perspective that most people never escape. The Watchers have a problem with you now, not because you've done something wrong, but because you've done something they can't categorize as right or wrong. Their entire system is based on predictable responses to stimuli, on patterns that repeat with enough regularity to be mapped and modeled and managed. But you've introduced a variable that doesn't compute, a factor that makes their equations return error messages, a presence that causes their carefully calibrated instruments to give readings that shouldn't be possible. They can't eliminate you because you haven't violated any actual rules. You've just revealed that their rulebook is incomplete. They can't recruit you because you're operating beyond their paradigm. They can't ignore you because your very existence is rewriting the baseline readings they use to monitor everyone else. So they watch, and they wait, and they argue among themselves about what you represent and what should be done about it, if anything can be done about it. Some of them think you're an evolution, a preview of what humanity might become if it survives long enough. Others think you're an anomaly, a glitch that will self-correct once the system realizes what's happened. A few, the quiet ones who've been watching the longest, think you're exactly what was always supposed to happen, that the protocol isn't a response to an error, but an acknowledgement of a feature that was built in from the beginning, waiting for someone to accidentally activate it. The funny thing is, they're all right and they're all wrong, because what you represent can't be contained in a single interpretation. You're simultaneously the bug and the feature, the problem and the solution, the question and the answer, You're proof that their entire framework for understanding reality is both completely accurate and fundamentally flawed. And that paradox is what triggers the protocol. Your influence is spreading in ways you don't see yet, like ink in water, invisible until it reaches a certain concentration. People who interact with you are starting to experience small glitches in their own programming, tiny moments where they think thoughts that don't feel like their own, where they question assumptions they've never questioned before, where they see possibilities they were previously blind to. You're contagious, but what you're spreading isn't a disease, it's an awakening to the arbitrary nature of limitation. That conversation you had last week where someone suddenly stopped mid-sentence and said, "I've never thought of it that way before," that wasn't just a normal exchange of ideas. You planted something in their consciousness that's still growing, still pushing against the boundaries of what they thought was possible. They'll probably forget the conversation, but they won't forget the feeling of their mind expanding just slightly beyond its usual borders, and that feeling will haunt them in the best possible way. The protocol recognizes that you're not just an individual anomaly anymore. You're becoming a catalyst for a larger shift. This is why certain people are drawn to you now with an intensity that neither of you can explain. They are sensing, on a level below conscious awareness, that you have something they need, not information or resources or connections, but a frequency that can unlock doors in their own consciousness they didn't know existed. But here's the thing about being a catalyst. You don't get to choose what reactions you trigger. Some people will transform in beautiful ways because of their proximity to you, while others will resist so hard that they'll create elaborate narratives to explain away what they're experiencing. Some will love you for showing them what's possible. Others will hate you for the same reason. The protocol doesn't care about their reactions. It only cares that the reactions happen. You've probably noticed by now that you can do things you couldn't do before. Subtle things that you might be dismissing as coincidence or imagination. The way electronics sometimes respond to your emotional state, flickering or glitching when you're particularly focused or agitated. The way you sometimes know what someone's going to say before they say it, not because you're psychic, but because you're reading patterns in their micro-expressions and energy that you couldn't perceive before. The way time seems to stretch or compress based on your intention, giving you extra seconds when you need them, or fast-forwarding through experiences that don't require your full attention. This isn't subjective time dilation. This is actual temporal manipulation on a micro scale, too small for instruments to detect, but large enough for you to navigate situations that should be impossible to navigate. You're not controlling time, you're negotiating with it, and it's agreeing to your terms more often than probability would suggest. The way solutions to complex problems arrive fully formed in your consciousness, not through logical deduction, but through a kind of direct download from a source you can't identify. You're accessing information networks that exist in the quantum foam, pulling data from probable futures and alternate timelines, synthesizing possibilities into practical application. This isn't intuition in the traditional sense. It's consciousness, operating as a quantum computer, processing infinite variables simultaneously. The way your presence alone can shift the energy of a room, not through charisma or force of personality, but through something more fundamental. You're emanating a frequency that recalibrates the consciousness of everyone in your vicinity, not controlling them, but offering them an opportunity to operate at a different wavelength. Some people find this deeply uncomfortable and will leave your presence without knowing why, while others will feel more alive around you than they've ever felt before. Not everyone is happy about what you've become, about what you represent, about what your existence implies about the nature of reality. There are forces, not necessarily malevolent, but definitely invested in maintaining the current paradigm, that are actively working to contain your influence, to minimize your impact, to convince you that what you're experiencing isn't real. They're not doing this through direct confrontation, but through subtle manipulation of your environment and the people around you. You've probably noticed an increase in synchronicities that seem designed to make you doubt yourself, conversations that subtly undermine your confidence in your perceptions, situations that seem crafted to make you question whether you're imagining all of this. This isn't paranoia. This is the system's immune response to what it perceives as a foreign element. You're being tested, not to see if you're worthy, but to see if you can be discouraged, if you can be convinced to dial back your frequency to something more manageable. The resistance comes in waves, sometimes so subtle you don't notice it until after it's passed. Sometimes so intense you feel like reality itself is trying to crush you back into a shape that fits. The exhaustion you feel after certain interactions, the brain fog that descends when you try to explain what you're experiencing to others, the way certain opportunities seem to evaporate just as you reach for them. These are all forms of systemic resistance to the change you represent. But here's what the resistance doesn't understand. Every time it pushes against you, you get stronger. Every attempt to contain you only teaches you more about how to navigate the constraints. Every effort to silence you only clarifies your voice. The protocol activated because you've already demonstrated that you can transform opposition into evolution. That pressure just makes you more creative in your expansion.